And it's Ken Kraetzer for Ken Kraetzer Talking Business, and in association with the Marketing Club of New York. And we're really glad to talk with Tom Martin today, who is a veteran in public relations and news, television, and has his company up in Stamford, Connecticut, expert in public relations, Tom Martin LLC. And Tom, good to see you. What I guess what are some of the keys that you see happening in the media world today? Obviously, just had the Olympics. You've got the political conventions. You've got the elections. And how do marketers uh, consider how should they approach one of those big television years?
Yep, yep. Well, great, Ken. Great to see you, sir. I always enjoy our conversations. There's so many directions I could go in answer to that question, but here's what comes to mind for me. I did, during my, 35-year media career with, during a few years with CNN Financial News, covered a lot of stories about entrepreneurs and startups and stuff like that, and worked for the Nightly Business Report on PBS for a while. So I've certainly been, paying attention to business. And just from my own curiosity, in my PR role these days, I continue to be fascinated by social media. And I would say that kind of like I'm learning to do for myself is that I think business owners should think along two tracks. One is the content side of what they do, and the other might be the tech side of what they do or the tools and so on. I still think that, it's one of my favorite, I guess you could call him a business author, maybe more of a social media guru, Gary Vaynerchuk. He came out with a book, like 15 years ago called Crush It. And he said, hey, we're all a brand, Martha Stewart, Richard Branson, et cetera. And that still holds true today. And I think in an age when, I guess you can break it down by demographics, but I think even folks my age are paying a lot of attention to social media. So I think if a brand wants to be successful and if it lends itself in this direction, I think if they can kind of put a face or, identify on a human level in terms of getting their message out there and then consider what social media tools they might use, even if it's TikTok or something like that, but certainly, LinkedIn video and, there's quite a range of tools, obviously. But I would encourage, when it comes to expanding your brand, I would encourage people to do that. And I was just reading a book. I've been telling friends about this. I forget the fellow's first name. I can a little bit out of reach, but his last name is Cain, Cain, and he wrote a book recently called 1 Million Followers. And don't get me wrong, I still believe in the power of television and radio, and so newspapers even. But he was saying if you can create content that is very helpful and useful to people and get it out there so that it's picked up by quote unquote influencers, and I don't mean vacuous 20-year-olds with all due respect to 20-year-olds, but more people who have an agenda. They want to serve their communities also. You can really amplify your brand. And so I still love, television. For my PR clients, I still look for those opportunities. But I think that if you can put a human face on it and kind of amplify it through these social media channels, that's a great way to go.
Well, no question that the NFL sports live programming certainly is still which can what can attract a lot of viewers for the networks news. um, Sitcoms I think are kind of a thing of the somewhat of the past, so they've moved to Netflix and others, but I guess this year it's such a big year with the big events going on that network television still seems like it can draw big audiences.
It really can. I mean, some people, are just kind of captivated by, social media is sexier or something. I don't know what, but it's just kind of that immediate one-on-one connection. You sort of know who you're connecting with instead of kind of going into a void, so to speak. But again, I worked for a number of years as a producer for Good Morning America, and we were always conscious of the fact that, hey, we have 8 million people out there watching our show, and so we really want to serve them. And I think, my advice to my PR clients is, find a way to be useful, to give value, no strings attached. Often, when it comes to television or radio or print, people are just kind of stumbling through what might come their way. I was talking with an old friend of the family. He used to be president of CBS News years ago when Dan Rather took over from Walter Cronkite, if you remember that transition. And
Yeah.
I was saying I kind of miss those days. My dad was a lifelong newspaper editor, so there's something to be said for kind of flipping through the pages, coming across a story like, wow, I had not even thought about that idea. How fascinating. These days, so many people are cherry picking and going in search of what they're interested in, but that does not leave room for, stimulating new things that you'd never even considered. And, television is still a great way to do that. You get a segment on Good Morning America and you have 8 million people there. It's like, wow, I've never seen this person before. I've never heard these ideas before, but this fits right into my life somehow. And again, if you can add value, they appreciate that. Not every one of those 8 million people are necessarily paying attention, or you're not necessarily a right fit for all of them, obviously. But it's still a great opportunity. So I still have a lot of faith in, as they say, traditional media. Yeah.
Yeah. Your career, kind of like mine, has bridged the gap with the introduction of the internet in the 1990s. And what a big change that was for PR when you didn't have to print, flyers, put them in envelopes, mail them out to your media contacts, and pay the postage bill on that. All of a sudden,
That's
you
right.
could send things out by email. I remember when all that started. And what was that like for you?
Well, it's funny. The first 20 years of my 35-year media career was with different TV networks and shows and so on. And again, the tail end of that was Good Morning America. The hours were a bit grueling. I wasn't seeing my kids, so I said, I think I'm going to kind of cross over to the other side of the line and get into PR. I don't want to do anything unethical or just be kind of a spin guy. But I went to work for a big PR firm in New York City where they had big brands like Ford and Dell Computer and whatnot. And it was a real education. And then that company had been around maybe 20 years and was going through some changes. And so many of us were laid off. And I remember as we're heading out the door, one guy, basically my age, was saying, I miss those days where you could write a press release that looked just like a newspaper article and you'd call up your friends and you drop it right in. And, that was what PR was. And I said, yeah, I guess you can miss it. I didn't say I don't think that's a very constructive attitude because the world is changing, as we know. So these days, hopefully, as you can tell, I kind of look at the new opportunities as a creative challenge. I could get really frustrated, and certainly the media has fragmented, more than ever, as you and I both know, but in a way that gives us the opportunity to find the right fit for our audience, and maybe the channels are more specialized and stuff like that. But in a way that gives us kind of a greater percentage of people who might really be interested in what we have to say, that we're a good fit for them. And I was also, as we were talking earlier, I was also thinking about how, again, about 15 years ago, I went to a presentation by a guy from MSN, not the TV channel, but YouTube was just starting up then. That was so long ago. And he said, it's like I was a philosophy major, so I think it was Aristotle who said, there's nothing new under the sun or something like that. And it's like classic stories. We're always going to be fascinated by classic stories of overcoming adversity, having a dream, creating something that never existed before, and so on. It's kind of on steroids, as it were, now with AI and Chat GPT and everything. But and again, speaking of sports, I loved watching the recent Olympics coverage from Paris. And every time the Olympics comes along, I was like, isn't it interesting? Most of these people, I've never heard their name in my life, but I suddenly gravitate towards them, and like they've got this mission, and it's like passion and emotion and victory and setback and all that. And so I think, there's classic stories. And I think if we can think about our own content and our own message, whether it's the history of our company or a new challenge, or maybe we're going in a little new direction because we really want to serve our customer base or something. I think those classic human emotions go a long way. We just channel them into TikTok or LinkedIn or something, or traditional television.
Yeah, for sure. Now, two of the big changes I've seen. obviously we're, as you mentioned, social media and how important that can be for business, a platform like LinkedIn or Twitter X, perhaps, or Instagram, and how much impact they can have for businesses today and the amount of viewership that is now on social media.
Absolutely. And I think, again, I'd mentioned, again, one of my favorite authors, Gary Vaynerchuk, a minute ago. And so, and also this fellow Kane, who wrote that book, 1 Million Followers, they talk about, that repetition is a big part of it. It's like as I'm, trying to grow my own, PR business right now, I'm thinking, well, who are the people who have liked some of my posts and so on? You can sort of go down a rabbit hole and spend your entire day. It's like Gary Vaynerchuk, I think he said, like, spend 8 hours a day on social media. It's like that's ridiculous. I can't imagine anybody who can literally do that. But I think that if again, it's like even in the days of old-fashioned television, 70s and 80s or whatever, it's the number of touches. And I'm sure people, PR is not quite the same thing as sales and marketing. It's very similar, but I mean, people talk about the number of touches and so on, touch points. And I think social media, if you can do that with repetition, and if you post, offer a quiz, or invite people to get a free tip sheet or something like that, so that there can be a little bit more interaction, because in traditional media, that's a little more difficult. I mean, when I've coached my clients on doing a TV interview on the Today Show or Good Morning America or something, I said, put the word out and saying, this is, I'm telling you about my journey, my struggles, my victories, but I'd love to hear about you, if this, if you can relate to this, or maybe you're in this field also, or if you have a question, here's go to my Facebook group, or something like that, so that if we can somehow open up the traditional channels to be a bit more interactive and get that repetition going a little bit, I think it really does lead to sales, and it's genuine customer service, basically.
You touched on one of the services you provide at Tom Martin Media is preparing clients for high profile media appearances,
Oh
perhaps a
yeah.
network television interview.
Yeah.
What are some of the key points that you stress your clients preparing for an important media appearance?
That's an excellent question. I was talking with a friend about that today, and I've been teaching online courses about kind of do-it-yourself PR. The latest version is like a 12-week program that I'm going to be doing again soon. And so this friend of mine, Richard, is in the program, and he is putting together an event that'll teach people, families, about aspects of autism, new tools that are available and stuff like that. And so he wrote a press release, and it was kind of like reminded me of a few situations I've been in where people are like proudly announcing their ribbon cutting. It's like, I hate to break it to people, but no one is really that interested in your ribbon cutting or what have you. It's like you're looking at it from your perspective. Like, we've been putting, sweat and blood into this so many hours. We're so excited about this new announcement, even launching a new product. So it's so easy to get caught up in seeing things from your point of view, when I encourage everybody to kind of make that shift and think about the people out there. How does this serve them? What are their concerns? Is there any way to ask them, how can I help you? You don't need to pay me anything, no strings attached. But it's like it's a very natural thing, because of course, when you're looking for PR, looking for media, you are thinking about yourself. And even if you believe in your hopefully we all believe in our product and service, but it takes a little practice, or maybe some reminders, to shift our focus from inward to outward, and I think that can make all the difference.
Well, very good. One of the things that I've done a lot with, and I've seen work in business media now, is video.
Sure.
Um, we have done hundreds, probably nearly 1,000 videos off a mobile phone, um, and others we do on channels like Zoom, like we are today. And it's relatively inexpensive, and with a little bit of know-how, you can do a pretty good job with it and get a message out on social media platforms. Um, what do you advise your clients on that? Sometimes it's, we work in the world of, I say it's not perfect, but it's pretty good, versus, the networks that are used to being perfect.
Exactly. No, that's two great points there. One is, I definitely encourage people to do more video. I should probably be doing more video myself now that you mention it. But the day where it needs to be perfect is gone. And I think so many times in my life, I've been hung up on perfection, like they say, perfection paralysis. I can't get this out the door. Was it Steve Jobs years ago said, just ship, just get it out. Well, the next iteration will be okay. It's there. Connect with those customers out there. And so we do not need to be perfect anymore. And it's funny, I spend a lot of my time these days in kind of the personal development field. A lot of my friends are coaches and that kind of thing, whether it's parenting or fitness or wealth creation or something like that. And for all of them, I really encourage them to use video, Facebook Live and Instagram and Reels and stories and all that. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not hard. But I think that we really, again, it's kind of like that. You are the human representation or embodiment of your business. And if people can identify a person associated instead of just kind of a faceless entity, that goes really a long way. And so even some of my friends who are coaches who are a bit shy, like, oh my God, I'm really self-conscious about the way I look or the way I sound or something, I just say, get over that, please, and get yourself out there, because people say, wow, I can really identify with that guy. That reminds me a little bit of myself. Or there's many, it's like me. There's certainly many PR people out there. I'm well aware of that. But if I can get out there and kind of express what I'm interested in and my interests and my personality and all that, it's like I think will my customers will find me. So I think it really does work that way.
Yeah, I found with some potential guests and some business executives, even and some military officers that I work with, are hesitant about doing video, being quoted, perhaps. And but in one sense, I see that their organizations need to be represented, and for them as senior leaders to to represent their companies. How do you get senior folks over self consciousness or saying that people haven't handling something that's new and different for them?
Well, I don't know if this I don't know if this will be a perfect answer to that question, but what comes to mind for me is that if they can really notice how getting their voice out there is making a difference. And a little story goes along with that, in that, some years ago, I was part of a team. A lady who had hired me did big media training, lectures, and presentations in front of doctors. A new medication gets approved by the FDA, and you get $150 doctors at a resort somewhere, like they fly in, but they have to promise to attend some of these education sessions. So I had a little breakout room of maybe 10 doctors. I think they were experts on epilepsy. And one of the guys said, Tom, I really appreciate that you're teaching us how to work with the media, how to do a great interview and all that kind of thing. But I am not interested in doing that. Journalists are really stupid in my experience. They ask such stupid questions. I find it very frustrating, and I'm just not going to be doing it. So you're kind of wasting your time with me. And I thought, okay, well, I certainly respect you, and that's an interesting perspective. However, if you're wisdom and you spent all these years becoming an expert in your field, you are very wise in your field, and you're withholding that from the marketplace or the public, there's somebody out there who could really have benefited from hearing from you, and you're just choosing not to do it. I mean, yes, it might be frustrating, but I would really encourage you to get your voice out there, get your message out there, because it can make a difference. From a military perspective, it might not be, changing somebody's life, but it might be enlightening people on what's really going on, because otherwise there's, such room for distortion, intentional or unintentional. So if people can get over that reluctance, I would really encourage them to do it.
We need visibility to get funding. It
A
doesn't
good
matter
point.
what organization is. Visible segments within organizations that are shown positive plans for the future get funded, and that's
Good
where
point.
kind of it's all at. Um, Tom, I guess it goes into something I've seen. I want to ask you about a lot of companies, a lot of schools do their own media today. They don't really wait for a reporter to call. They have their own broadcast team. They're writing their own press releases, getting them out on Twitter and LinkedIn, and do all sorts of internal. Um, How do you see that? How do you advise organizations about developing their own internal capability in media?
Um, well, I guess two things come to mind, and one is, just like with my own coaching about kind of do-it-yourself PR for authors or speakers or whatever, I encourage people don't sit on the sidelines. If you feel that desire to get your message out there, it's like, how come this is not getting more attention? I think this is really important that people know about this. Don't just wait. I think it's great to take it into your own hands and so on, but I would also encourage them to, see what's really resonating and what's really effective. Um, just for example, there's certainly a lot of these platforms you can pay, $300 to have your press release posted, on PR web or something like that. And for all my PR career, I've generally stayed away from that. I'll do it once in a while, but I say, what am I what's my what's my goal here? My goal is to connect with more members of the public and really make them aware. And if I think that I write a press release, I kind of control the messaging, so I don't know whether it's really working or, engaging attention, opening people's minds and so on, getting the message out there. And sometimes it just, again, when our focus is inward, we can write a press release that's not engaging. It's just meaningless. There's no value to it out there. And so if they say, okay, I wrote a press release and I paid PR web. I'm not knocking PR web. There's role times to use it, I admit. But if you think that is an effective PR strategy, I really don't think it is. I really think you need to test your message. Is it getting out there? And probably the best measure of is it getting out there is for journalists. Are they picking up on it? It's like, oh, that's a really good story. I still believe in earned media these days. A number of media outlets, even local news television stations and so on, are saying, well, for X dollars, we'll interview you. And I hate that. I guess they need to make the money or something. But I still believe whoever you are, whatever your goal is, whatever your message is, there's always a way to make what you're talking about timely, show how it fits into what's going on in the world right now, offer a little value that will make, even in a 3 or 4 minute interview, make the listener's life a little different, give them a little edge, like, oh, that's a great tip. I'm not saying every interview should be 3 tips on whatever, or 3 mistakes you must avoid, but I mean that kind of helpful information. It's like, I really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you because hopefully some of the thoughts that I'm sharing was like, oh, that was an interesting distinction, or I think I'm going to try it that way. So, so I can understand how people might take media in-house and think they're being effective, but I hope they ask themselves, is it really effective? It might be, and you can, if you're open to, iteration and adjusting, you can make it work for you. Nothing wrong with it. And even like, I live in Connecticut, and there's like a little cable access TV show. The host is a really brilliant guy, and I know that he, will read any author's book and ask great questions. It's like the audience for the show is minuscule. I don't even know. It could be like 90 people or less. But I tell some authors I work with who happen to live in my area, let's get an interview on that show, because again, it shows you, under the spotlight, answering good questions, because then you can, put that on social media, send it out to the world, or, get the
That's
attention.
it. Yeah, you hit on it. It's repurposing your content. Is that local cable outlet in Connecticut may have 90 people, but you can take the programming, the content, put it on your LinkedIn page, your Twitter page, or whatever, Instagram and YouTube certainly, and go to a very broad audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Find that a lot. Now, Tom, we got a break in a few minutes, but I want you to describe what you're doing at Tom Martin Media. I know you got a number of special programs coming up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, like I said, I'm enjoying getting into coaching and leading an online course, kind of a mastermind where we talk about, well, what is an effective press release? How do we get the message out there? I have, hundreds, if not thousands of personal connections, in business media, all kinds of fields, really. And so I love doing that. People can, contact me. Can I give my email address?
Sure, we'll have it in the contact information on the attachment.
Okay, great.
So
Yeah.
go
So
ahead.
if they just email me, tom@tommartinmedia.com, you can hear about my latest course. I always have one of these 12-week programs starting up. I'm going to be very shortly going to be launching a private membership group, relatively low cost, where I'll be answering questions like this every week. And we'll all support one another, give another set of eyes to our press releases, bring in some media experts and so on. And I do one-on-one PR work for authors and speakers, and love working with nonprofits and stuff like that. But it's really a fun field. I enjoy it, and kind of like that doctor I mentioned, it makes me feel good when advice that I've shared over that I've learned over the years can make a difference in somebody's life, because we certainly live in challenging times right now, and I think it's a natural desire for so many of us to really just be heard. I'm eager to share. I don't, there's other people out there sharing their wisdom. How come it's not happening for me? And I think if you follow the right steps and approaches like we've discussed here, you can't let that hurdle stand in your way. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. Thank you.
Well, Tom, hope we can do it again. Tom Martin Media up in Connecticut, veteran, has worked at CNN and with some really terrific organizations, ABC. Tell me the other companies you've been at.
It's a long and checkered path. I started with CBS News in Washington, covering politics, in fact. So, I'm always interested in what's happening politically. It's amazing. And then I moved up to New York to work with Charles Kuralt when he was still hosting CBS Sunday Morning. Somewhere along the way, I worked for the Food Network for a couple of years. And actually, here in Connecticut, a guy I worked for a year, Dick Cavett, if you remember the late night great
Sure,
host
sure.
Cavett, he's in Connecticut now. So we get together now and then. And then CNN for entrepreneurs, CNN Financial, FN Financial News, and then kind of wrapped it all up with Good Morning America with Diane Sawyer. And so it's been quite a journey, but I love variety. So that's given me a lot of chance to meet lots of business owners and artists and musicians, and it's a fun career from that perspective.
Well, that's great. Well, Tom Martin, so good to talk with you from Tom Martin Media.
Thank you.
Based in Connecticut, a veteran, worked at some of the most extraordinary media organizations, now advising clients on public relations and social media and the whole new world of media, the way it now operates.
It can be
Uh,
fun. Like I said, I choose to look at it as a fun, creative challenge instead of a source of frustration. So that's how I look at it.
no, it is. I find it's all about telling stories of wonderful, accomplished people like yourself, and enjoy doing it. And
Thank you.
Tom, we have to do this again, but thank you for joining us. And this is Ken Kraetzer talking business in association with the Marketing Club of New York. Thanks for watching.